Up next, we take a look at advice from an experienced cardiologist on what things no one should do before 9 a.m. or the things they shouldn't do after 7 p.m. in order to protect their heart. Welcome to the Call Like I See It podcast. I'm James Keys. I'm here with Tunde Ogunlana, and we're going to have our second part of our discussion today. Tunde, we saw a little bit earlier this year, cardiologist Sanjay Bhojraj published two pieces in CNBC. And this is a guy with 20 years of experience as a cardiologist, been treating heart attacks and so forth. And he lays out a set of things he never does in the morning before 9 a.m. And then separately, another set of things he never does in the evening after 7 p.m. And this is based on his experience. So what stands out about the cardiologist's advice here? Are his, what do you think in these things? Or is this good advice? Or, you have some experience in this. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my initial thought was I was depressed because I realized
you do all this stuff.
No, 4 out of 5. So I'm 80%. And the best part is it's 4 out of 5 in the morning and 4 out of 5 in the evening. So it's exactly 80% of what I'm not supposed to do, I do. So, I guess I should be maybe disappointed I just didn't get 100%. So
one way or the other.
So, and it's, I'm sorry, it's 7 things in the evening. So, I don't do 6 of them.
So I would say the math doesn't work out quite as well.
Whatever. Yeah. So it is what it is. But yeah, so that was my response. It deflated me. So what else you want to know?
No. Well, to me, it was very interesting because they kind of swam. Well, the stuff in the morning and the stuff in the evening kind of swam in the same pond, separately though. So the stuff in the morning was about, hey, your body. Both of them are about the cycle your body is either coming out of or going into. All of this is based around the sleep. So in the morning, one which was very interesting to me said that so many cardiac events happen in the morning. This is when your cortisol rises naturally. When you wake, your cortisol rises. That's part of how your body wakes itself up, and then it's supposed to come back down. And so your blood pressure rises, your heartbeat kind of normalizes because it's a little more irregular at sleep. So these things are happening naturally. And so what we do during that time frame can either support that process or make it go haywire. And so like a lot of the things he's talking about, there's some mention about caffeine, but a lot of it seems to be about sugar and processed foods. Like if you're doing like his first thing is not sugary caffeine, drinks like the Starbucks type of thing, like that. And again, you get coffee from Starbucks, but the things that people really like, those like desserts for breakfast type of thing. Like those types of things are really bad. That amount of sugar and that amount of caffeine together is something that is really bad. He talks about the processed meats and so forth. So it was about that. And then in the evening, he talks about, you're getting your body ready for this wind down period, and so it's like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have, what was very interesting to me, no emotionally charged movies, type of thing. No emotionally charged conversations, because that's going to get your body riled up. And when your body's supposed to be getting, kind of chilling out a little bit. So, that they, one was about what you're consuming and what you're doing with your body as it's in this moment of waking. And then the other is like, hey, you're trying to let your body have a nice, smooth wind down. Don't screw that up. Like that they were kind of in those same themes was what really stood out.
Yeah, man, it's interesting because I noticed that too about things like the light and not the thing about not watching emotionally charged television shows or films. And which all makes sense, obviously, if you can get disturbed emotionally and mentally by things you see, and obviously doing that right before you try to go to sleep doesn't seem that productive. And that's kind of what kind of saddens me a bit, honestly, James, in this conversation, because I kind of realize, like you said, like a lot of the advice is stuff that we've discussed on different show discussions about, when it comes to things like the processed foods and all that kind of stuff. We've had show discussions on caffeine. So it seems like the way that modern life was already going, in prior to the last, let's say 20 years, was already going in a direction that was throwing the human body and kind of our internal biosphere, let's say, off with all of these artificial kind of ingredients and processed food and all that.
I think you can stretch that back like 80, 100 years. It seems like the direction we're going is contra to all of these things.
Correct. So, and it's a good point you make, because it's like the industrialization, right? Once the technology came, then it's changed. We made changes, and I think where I'm getting at is because he just specifically kind of referenced film and television shows that could stress you out, and it just made me think of all of us that have a cell phone with a screen on it, and it's bigger than just movies and shows. We don't think about the text message we get at 10:15 at night by somebody, and or the thing we see online that the notification is sending us from our news feed. All those things have a risk of triggering us into some sort of heightened stressful state without us really wanting it. And that's what I'm saying about
and his point is that all that stuff over time, it adds up on your heart. And
for sure, yeah. But that's what I'm getting at is like, if you look at your phone at 10:15 to answer a text and that text is negative, that's gonna be probably worse than watching a bad movie, because at least the movie your conscience can tell you that was just a movie. The text is real life.
Man, we just did that book Beyond Belief, and apparently that's not how our brains work.
Well, yes, but in this example, I think that the text will definitely
for the purposes of your point, that it's going to work.
But that's why I say that I think that we don't appreciate, and this is where it got me thinking, James, about things like the ever-ending saga for me, as you know, with this idea of free will. Because once you start looking at it this way, like, we are kind of pressured. We're all being prisoners of whatever moment we're in based on what's the inputs we're getting. So to the point of the article, the foods we put in our body before a certain time or after a certain time, like you said, affect cortisol, affect all these other things that affect our mood, how we might respond to people in general. So, I think again, it's another example of how complex we are, our bodies, our minds, and the fact that we probably have much less control over how we respond to things than we realize, because those responses are really being triggered by these things we're inputting into our body and how we're dealing with.
Well, but that does give us a level of control, though. It's just the nexus of control is further back than we're thinking about. Like, that's kind of the thing is. Yeah,
and I think it requires more education to understand that you're fighting against this.
If it's not directly proximate, if it's not, I kick this ball and the ball rolls, then it's harder. You need to know more in order to understand, like, I step on this button and then 3 other things happen and then the ball rolls. And it's like, well, that if you don't understand that connection, to your point, then it's harder to do it. I think looking at this from a standpoint of modern life was a really good thing to raise on your part, because I look at it, just from my own personal, and I'm like, man, a lot of this stuff from a parent standpoint is like, I don't even understand how I'm supposed to do a lot of this stuff. Like, I aspire to be done eating and everything like that before 7 p.m. But kids got sports, all this other kind of stuff. I aspire to not, do any of my lifts after 7 p.m. But I might be at a soccer practice and then I get home at 7:30. It's like, all right, let me get a quick lift in, so it's, and then in the morning, same thing. It's like, I aspire to get up and go, ease into my day and all this other stuff. But it's like, I got to get the kids to school. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then I got to get ready for work. So when is that when is the time I'm supposed to just kind of chill? So you can see how he's like, don't do breakfast pastries, which that one is easy for me not to do. But that's very convenient. Like, you want to eat healthy food? I like to eat fruit. I got to go to the store a lot to eat fruit, because my fruit only stays good for a little bit of time. I can get a box of breakfast pastries and be good for a month. The convenience of those things, while they undermine your health, and then it undermines your health in the long term. So it's like, that's going to be bad for me in 10 or 15 years, but I got to get through today. So what do you think as far as, and I know you kind of touched on this before, but were any of these sticking out to you as far as, because you have an even crazier morning than me, as far as how realistic this stuff is, for parents, or, even the late night eating. That's not realistic for college kids, but nonetheless.
No, I think, I get up early and I take my youngest to school, we're out of the door by 6:15. So it's a good point, because
hold on,
reading it.
Can you repeat that for me again? I don't think that you gave the proper level of emphasis for what time.
We're out of the door by 6:15.
All right, go ahead.
So the reality is, I'm reading it. What do I normally do? I have a cup of coffee, right after I wake up, at 5:45, whatever, as I'm getting my head in the game. And then I
Time to
usually
go
will
battle
pour another.
traffic. You know,
Yeah,
like,
well, that's why I'll pour another cup into the coffee mug, right? That keeps it warm, and I drive. So yeah, I'm having basically 2 cups of coffee with French vanilla flavoring. So we talked about not having the
that's your
sugary
sweet, yeah,
stuff.
your
So
sweeteners.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the sugar,
Are you eating
and I
before
do
that?
it. No, that's my point. I'm
That's
doing it
another
every
way you're
morning
supposed to.
without eating, without drinking water first, and all that. And so, but I thought the same thing you did. I have a choice. I can choose to not drink coffee in the morning, and I can also, for example, choose to,
You
one of
could
the
get up
ones that struck.
earlier, eat something, try to
Yeah,
drink a couple cups of water. Like you could do, but then you drink a couple cups of water and then you're in traffic all that time. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I'm 40,
Well, and I
I'm
think part
late
of
40s. I might have to go
yeah.
to the bathroom.
Yeah, with already having survived a prostate infection, yeah, that's not going to be fun. But I think it's just like you said about lifestyle, though, right? Because could I go to bed earlier? Yeah, I could go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, wake up at 5, start my day off that way, which is fine. But then that runs into a bit of my business life and how I work because of my
You got
life, I
stuff
got
to
to
do
split my
after
time.
7 p.m., man.
So yeah. So my point is that part of it is modern life, and the reality is I don't sleep as much as I should. I
Yeah.
probably average 6 hours of sleep, and not the 7.5 I should. So there's a lot of factors, and I'm sure that this cardiologist would tell me by not sleeping properly, I am affecting my cardiovascular health,
Yeah,
which we've done a
that'd
show
be
about
another risk factor.
me having a heart attack and all that. So like all this stuff swims in my mind when I read it about like, yeah, these are the pressures of living in modern life, post-industrial age, and now going into the information age. And one of the things I want to say, just as again an anecdotal story from my life, one of the things I used to do pretty well was I used to not have a television in my bedroom when I was single. I used to think that my bed was to go to sleep in, and that room was for that, and not really, and maybe to have other fun with. If I had a friend in there, but not to really sit there and watch TV. I got a living room for that, right? And so I remember when I got with my wife, and getting on the way to be married, and all, when we started living together and stuff, is she was the type that would fall asleep to the TV. So then it became an issue because I don't want a TV in my room, but she got to have one. So we compromised where we had a TV in our room, but we just turn it off before we go to bed now. Because I can't be having the TV on with the light trying to go to sleep, and she wants a TV in her room. So it's an example of how I tried to do the not having the light in the room, but this time I can blame my wife.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you when the cardiologist tells you, Tunde, I told you not to have the TV and the emotionally
it's gonna be her
charged
fault.
Television shows. You're gonna be pointing the finger. Hey man, we got to point more thumbs, less fingers.
Yeah, it's going to be her fault. Just don't show her the show, okay? So that she doesn't know, because she comes with me to the doctor's appointment. So I don't want her to be ready for that. So, yeah.
Oh man. So, well, I'll say this: with a lot of these types of because the internet has tons of these types of hey, here are the 3 things you got to do, or here's the 5 things you can't do. Like, there's tons of those things, and I think a lot of times we as people are wired to look at it kind of like what you did. It's like, oh, I'm batting 80%, or I'm missing 20, or I'm hitting 20%, or whatever it would be, whatever perspective you look at it. I think that you said before, like, because, or we said together, because a lot of the results that we get are not directly connected to the things that cause them, and so there are steps in between. It's a little complicated. That we need education in order to figure out how we can try to take more control. Well, this is that, in my opinion. Like, I don't think you read something like this and say, hey, if I can't do all 5, or if I can't do all 7, then, I'm just not going to do anything. Like, I think that the point of this is more so to understand the connections, and then try to, even if you can't do exactly what he's saying that he thinks you should do, if you gear things around, like, it may be, something where you get up and you take a handful of almonds and just eat those, and then you have that in your stomach as you're driving down or whatever, which won't make you have to go to the bathroom, but there are small tweaks you might be able to do to get further along the kind of, to get closer to this, without saying, if I can't get 100% of this one factor, I'm not even going to try. Or if I can't get 100% of all 5 of them, I'm not even going to try. So I think that the target for most of us, because I don't think it's realistic to hit all of them for everyone, for most people, because life is busy, so the target is really to say, okay, well, what's, and this is why I looked at it probably just naturally. I looked at it as kind of the themes that he was pulling out from the morning one, the themes that he was pulling out from the evening. Okay, and so how can I? What can I do? Not what can't I do? Spending time thinking about what you can't do is not that helpful. What you spend time figuring out the things you can do and say, okay, what can I do to help move me in a direction and towards being healthier on my heart in the morning? And what can I do? I may not be able to do everything, but what can I do to make me live a life that's a little heart healthier in the evening? And then you can make progress from something like this. You can make it be useful for your life as opposed to just something that might make you feel guilty or make you want to point some fingers instead of pointing some thumbs. So I know we got to wrap, man. Any other thoughts?
Nah, just a good reminder of the complexity of the human body, and that we still have a modern medical kind of ecosystem that's very compartmentalized. And I'll just finish with this example. I'm 48, and I just learned in the last month how important gum health, meaning the gums in your mouth, is for your heart. And when I learned the details, it made sense that your gums are
the inflammation,
one cell,
all that inflammation.
One cell membrane thick. And if you have bleeding in your gums, it's an easy gateway for bacteria to go into your bloodstream. And there's no filter like your body has natural filters in the nose and the lungs and the stomach with stomach acid to kill certain pathogens.
There's more to it than that too. But your point is valid.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So just to finish up is my cardiologist never informed me this, and my dentist never informed me of this, and maybe other people's cardiologists and dentists have informed me of this. I just never knew this until I'm 48 years old. So it's an example that I just feel like our culture is still very compartmentalized with how we look at all these parts of the body instead of, and I know we're learning this. That's why we're doing this discussion, that's the body's very connected. Yeah.
No, that's the point. Actually, no, this is something I've known this for about 10 years, but I learned from my dentist at the time. But the way it was explained to me was that, this is emerging in terms of, hey, we're getting a better understanding of this now, because the gums, what's going on with your gums, you can have minor infections in there, and then you just have a persistent infection in your body. And it's like, well, that's not what we want. And all you got to do is floss or whatever to clean that up. So it's not just that you just learned, it's that the connection between that and other, like the inflammation, like you said, the ability for bacteria to get in, anything like that, all of that stuff, the connections are still being learned more. So that's the other part. We don't walk around knowing everything that's going on with our body, and nobody, like you said, the lack of connectedness contributes to that. But then also the complexity, like you said. So, it's one of those things. There's going to be things that we're going to learn in 5 years. Like, oh yeah, we probably shouldn't have been doing this. And science will establish, they'll establish the connection, and then people will learn about it slowly. And then some people will adjust and some people won't, that's kind of the way it goes. And then maybe 50 years, it'll be common knowledge.
So here's another final important thing on a serious note. It's important why men should talk to each other about their health, because now I just realized I'm going to get a new dentist. Seriously, your dentist been talking to you about that for 10 years. Mine hasn't.
It's actually crazy the way it happened. Because, listen, check this out. I've always had very healthy teeth. And so, I've never had a cavity, anything like that.
Hold on. For the audience, this is how we normally talk. So we're not even having a show now. So
right. I should have said it's not off on the record. But so I go to the dentist, and usually I go to the dentist to get the cleaning, everything was great. And then I leave. And then the dentist is like, all right, you got to do this super gum treatment, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, what? You trying to sell me something? And then they were just like a changeover at the dentist's office also. So somebody else was in charge. And I'm like, I don't even know this person. And they're telling me I got to do all this stuff. They're like, oh, it's going to be $300. Insurance doesn't cover it, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? So me being me, I go research it. And I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about. So they're saying that this deep cleaning thing is supposed to keep this cascade of things. And so they weren't just trying to upsell me, because I got the reaction. The way they hit me with it was that they were trying to upsell me on something. And I'm like, yo, I've been going to the dentist twice a year as long as I can remember. Nobody's ever said anything to me about this.
I think
floss a little bit more.
That's an example of two things being true at once. I think they were trying to upsell you, and it's probably good for you to get deep clean.
But it was real information, though. It was something.
That's what I'm saying. Real. Two things were true in that one.
That's where you see those water squirt guns people have, because that's supposed to get in those pockets too. So there's a whole world of information in there. So hopefully somebody gets something out of that, and ask your dentist about it. They should know, because the gum health thing is much more developed now than it was 20, 30 years ago for sure. So, but we will wrap for real now. We're wrapping.
I won't ask mine. I'll just fire him. You gave me good reason. Thanks. Tell your dentist you're gonna have a new patient soon.
So, but we
see you later.
appreciate everybody for joining us on this episode of Call Like I See It. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it, review it, tell us what you think, send it to a friend. Till next time, I'm James Keys.
I'm Tunde Ogunlana.
All right, we'll talk soon.